Hey everybody, in today's episode, it's myself and Benjamin B. Listen, Alcoholics Anonymous has been around for 90 years now. 90 years. It's gotten millions of people sober, and Ben and I are discussing really the impact that Alcoholics Anonymous has had on our lives. It's also Men's Mental Health Month, and so we're talking about the importance of men's mental health, especially for ourselves and our own personal situations, and how we upkeep our mental health on a day-to-day basis. And then we transition to dogs, and we talk about our dogs, and Ben is going to have to dog sit for the next 3 weeks, and it's a pretty fascinating conversation. We get pretty vulnerable about our little furry friends. Before we get into the episode, Family Reconnect has launched. We meet every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's been a phenomenal 2 weeks. We've met 2 Tuesdays in a row now. Great response, and we want to see you there. Go to realrecoverytalk.com/FRC to find out all the details. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
So we've had 2 weeks up to this point of our Family Reconnect program.
Yes, we have.
I think it's going phenomenal.
I really enjoyed week 2.
Yeah.
Week 1, we were just kind of like warming up, getting to know everyone. Week 2, bro, was awesome. There was a couple points where I like had to remind myself, okay, I'm here to facilitate, because a couple of the moments I was just like so taken back, like in a good way, where you just, wow, you know?
The what we're trying to create there, I think, is something that isn't being done. Well, I can't say that. It is.
I agree with that.
You do? Why?
Yes. We asked for some feedback. We asked for some upfront, I guess expectations would be the word, or hopes of what people get out.
Like a wish list.
A wish list, so to speak. And then we also got some feedback as well, and both of them are the same thing, basically, that the individuals involved who have an addict or a loved one in early recovery, maybe still out using, a couple of them have loved ones currently in treatment somewhere.
Yeah.
They want the same thing, to be able to crosstalk and get feedback. That is very oftentimes not provided in Al-Anon. Al-Anon and 12-step meetings generally have a rule, no crosstalk. There are very, very few and far between some meetings that break that rule based off of group conscious.
Yeah.
But that's a very rare thing. Sometimes when that does happen, it's a beginner's meeting, and it's probably pretty inconsistent. And you don't know what kind of feedback you're going to get, essentially, to call it what it is, where people who have absolute experience on the treatment side, on the clinical side, 12-step side, all throughout. But people want to be able to bring their personal experiences into it, what they're going through in the moment, that week, whatever the case may be, details, situations, and get suggestions and feedback from that.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something that is hard to put into words. In other words, it's something that you really should experience, because a lot of times, and as you know, Ben and I are big proponents of 12-step programs, but there's certain things inside of a 12-step program, or a meeting, if you will, that you're just not going to get in something else, and something like what we're doing there. And some of the biggest takeaways that I have gotten, and we've only done 2 weeks, is the amount of honesty that the family members are sharing. Now, don't get me wrong. They feel comfortable with us because they've all been listening to the podcast for a while. Mm-hmm. So there is a level of trust there. And a few of them were a part of the Big Book study, so they know each other from that in terms of the families, they know each other from that. But they're being like raw and vulnerable and telling us what's going on, and they're all giving themselves, feedback and accolades, and like it's just such a good community. The thing that we're going to have to figure out is, because the size of it right now it's nice. There's 7 people, 7 families that are 7 people that have signed up, and it's just the same as like groups that we run here. Once you get too big, you kind of lose the intimacy of the group.
Yeah.
But rest assured, we have a plan for that. So, I don't know. I think we're probably going to cap it at like 15 per group.
Yep.
And then once we're over that, then we'll just open up another slot, and you don't have to worry about that. You're never going to find yourself among 60 people on a Zoom call. That would that's not fair to you, and it's not going to be as productive as it otherwise could be.
I wouldn't even enjoy it as much because it would be a loss of intimacy if I speak selfishly.
Right.
I like feeling that connection and that intimacy and authenticity and vulnerability at that level. It's the most effective. It's kind of like if I apply it to any other part of my program, or even what we do at Rock, man. We've stayed the same size at Rock forever for a reason. I came to the realization at one point in my recovery, and I think a lot of people do this. We just had a guy on that was talking about it. Josh, I don't know if it was part of what we recorded or if it was a sidebar conversation I had with him, but I came out of the gates hard with sponsoring guys. I'd be sponsoring like 8 guys at a time. And I came to the realization, man, like I'd rather help just a couple people extremely well than try to save the world. Because essentially, you really focus on a couple of people, you get them healthy, then they can carry the message out. So essentially, your job is to be another part of extending the web versus being thinking you can be the whole web yourself. You can't.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that, we're hoping to be able to do with these current family members that are in it, equip them with the knowledge and understanding that one of the best things that they can do for themselves is to find somebody else that they can impact.
Yeah. I don't know if challenged is the right word, but I was hoping within the last session to put some thought provocation into somebody's mind, because we were encouraging them. You could take what you're going through now and help somebody. And one of the individuals said, I don't know if I'm ready to help anyone. But I pointed out, the reality is you're literally helping someone as we speak.
Right.
People just they're not aware of it, or maybe they don't believe it at the capacity that I believe it, because I've seen it so often and how powerful it is. So there's so many times when in situations when I found out later on down the road, 2020 hindsight, how helpful I was to somebody, whether I realized it or not at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing to that is, oftentimes when people think, oh, am I in a position to help somebody? We oftentimes say that in the context of, well, the only way that I can help you, Ben, is if you actually implement what it is that I'm trying to help you with, and I can see tangible results. Mm-hmm. If you don't see the tangible results, or if you don't do what it is that I suggest that you do, therefore I didn't help you. And that's not true. In all of these situations, families, loved ones, even us in recovery, the best thing that we can do is to put it out there. Yeah. And it's up to that person as to whether or not they're going to accept it as help, and if they're going to implement the things that you're suggesting, or whatever the case is. And even look at this podcast for an example. Anytime you share an episode of our podcast with somebody, your intentions are 100% pure. You are trying to help somebody. Now, what they do with the information from the podcast is entirely up to them, mm-hmm. but it doesn't take away from your efforts or your your motivations behind doing it. And I think a lot of times family members get wrapped up in that. Well, what do I have to offer? I don't have anything to offer. And it's like that's so far from the truth, because you do. You just do. Like, you're on the calls with us. If you're in the Family Reconnect program, you have been listening to the podcast for a while, probably. You're educated far more than the average family member or loved one. Maybe you have an issue with application.
Or you can also look at it like maybe you're the middleman. Because I can't tell you my sobriety how oftentimes I said, if somebody asked me a question about a situation, I would answer with like, well, my sponsor said. And then you brought up the podcast, like you could literally say, well, Ben and Tom said, or say on a regular, like a lot of the people that we interact with who listen to the podcast regularly, they know like all our one-liners at this point and our, stuff along those lines.
Well, yeah. And every time, we put these episodes out, it's up to our listeners as to whether or not they're going to do what we say in these podcasts. You don't have to.
Here's one of those one-liners. We're not in the results business. We're in the business of showing up.
That's it. I mean, that's the best way to put it. But I think it's been absolutely phenomenal. Again, we're only 2 weeks in. The family members are great. We've gotten great feedback. I encourage you to check it out. At least, try it out for a month or two. If you don't like it, cancel. There's no specific cancellation policy or anything like that. And you can go to realrecoverytalk.com/FRC to get the details. It's a landing page, and it gives you some of the specifics on it. But in a nutshell, basically, we meet every Tuesday at 6:00 Eastern time. There's a 12-week curriculum that you get with it. Newsletters, the community aspect of it, myself, Ben Tambini, and all the expert speakers that we have lined up to speak. It's a good thing. And at the price point, I think it's, and where this is applicable to family members, if you have somebody that is struggling, we're going to walk you A to Z on getting them the help that they need. And that in and of itself, and I've talked to many moms in particular that have said, if we knew something like this was available, it would have saved us thousands of dollars. And I spoke to one mom. She hired private investigators, all this stuff. Thousands of dollars she spent, to try and get her son clean. And none of it ever worked.
I get really sad a lot of the times, and this is just me speaking the truth, where somehow, some way, someone will get in touch with us for our center. And, for instance, the individual no longer has insurance because they lost their job or whatever the case may be. But the parents will say, like, we've literally spent $150,000 sending them to 3 or 4 different treatment centers, and we are out of funds to be able to help them. And I ask, like, well, what did that look like? What did those centers offer? And I'm just like, oh my God, they literally just took your money.
Yeah. Because
they didn't know what to look for, what questions to ask, what models work. They get sold on a bill of goods.
Right.
And it breaks my heart, man. It really does. Because I'm like what made me think of that was when you said, if people knew that this information was out there prior to making a decision. You don't know what you don't know, so it's not your fault.
Yeah, it's ignorance.
But a lot of times they're like, oh, man.
Yeah. Well, the biggest one, too, is the whole 30-day thing. Just go to treatment for 30 days, and that doesn't scratch
30
the
days
surface.
For $30,000 and your loved one's cured. Like, no, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So anyways, great time there. Ben, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
90?
Yes, sir.
90 years old?
Yeah, let me pull it up. I lost it, Tom.
So, for those of you that don't know, Alcoholics Anonymous is the fellowship that Ben and I are actively a part of. Ben's more actively a part of than I am, but we've always been open about that. It's got millions of people sober over the last 90 years, and it's pretty remarkable the power inside of Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of times people think that it's just about stopping drinking, when in fact I think Alcoholics Anonymous has done more for me than college did. It did more for me than a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, I wish they taught this in college.
Yeah.
I found an interesting post. Sorry, I lost it for a second. I had to pull it up. I had screenshotted it. Good buddy of mine, Billy G, put it up. But
Billy G, your coach?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your bodybuilding coach.
Yes, correct. Billy G _fit on Instagram. If anybody needs a bodybuilding coach. He's also in recovery. So
shout out
to Billy. And he just spoke at our family weekend this past weekend.
Yeah, I heard.
Powerful story, dude. Powerful. Anyway, he posted up on AA's 90th birthday, and it's interesting. I'll read it real quick. A program that has saved millions of lives and has positively contributed to society without taking a single dime from the government or any company. It should be studied how such a group can be so effective and so self-sufficient. There's not many gems left in society, but AA is one of them. A place where anyone is welcome, a place where political, race, and societal status mean nothing. Just one person helping another. If you ever want to see what good society is actually capable of, hit a meeting. Dude, and you know what, man? I talk about it all the time, like, because of my position in recovery, both professionally and personally. Like, I follow a lot of groups on Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media. And, I jump in the comment section because I'm always curious what people are thinking about different posts about recovery. And, a lot of times, people are bashing AA, but I believe because they don't understand it. And that's not necessarily AA's fault. But they're bashing it. But if you look at it, dude, literally the point that it never accepted any money from the government or any company, and is fully self-sufficient, just people showing up to do service. If you don't even have $1 to put in the basket, you don't have to. Nobody's looking there's no basket police. You can show up with literally nothing and be welcomed. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor or if you are
homeless.
Off of Skid Row.
Yeah.
I've seen every end of the spectrum, and I do understand that people have actually tried to study AA in a way, like corporate companies have tried to look into like how it works so efficiently. And dude, it really is a miracle in itself. It's as strong as ever.
Well, it's 90 years old, and that in and of itself says a lot. With very little change. They've updated the book. We're going on 5 times now?
Yeah.
Over the course of 90 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say updated the book, like phrases and words here and there to make it more applicable to this time.
Well, it's the stories in the back of the book. The first 163 pages has remained identical.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other pages, like Appendix 2 and stuff like that. But the only thing that's changed in the big book is the personal stories in the back, just to more clearly represent the current membership.
So explain the stories in the back. Like give us like a 2-minute version. Like if I open up a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, how am I supposed to read this book?
Did I say 163? I meant to say 164.
I don't know.
There's 164 pages. Yeah. It's the first 164. First 164 pages is the meat and potatoes of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's called the big book, but in actuality, it's only 164 pages as the meat and potatoes. So it's actually the little book. It's all the stories in the back of the book. I don't know if it's 42 or 43. Because my little tiny version of the big book says 43 stories, and the big book says 42. So 42 or 43 personal stories in the back, if anybody's like a fact checker. But essentially, each story in the back of the book are people's stories who have been chosen by Alcoholics Anonymous to be featured in the back of the book because their story represents all different types, from doctors to being homeless. You got the low bottom drunk, the high bottom drunk, the physical bottom, the spiritual bottom. I mean, they're all spiritual bottom at the end of the day, but you know what I'm saying. You got the stories about the guys that are IV drug users. You got the stories about the prostitute, you name it. It goes on and on and on. But those are the only stories that they switch out as each. We have four what's it called?
Versions?
Not versions. Four editions. There it is.
Oh.
We're in the 4th edition. I hear the 5th edition's about to come out.
Yeah.
And that'll have some new stories, more updated to the times of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, so the stories in the back are more relatability. And my first exposure to the big book was, I mean, outside of the book that was given to me that I stuffed in a drawer and pulled out when I was drunk. And, my first actual real exposure to it, I was told to just start reading the stories out of the back of the book. Don't even necessarily get involved in the first 164 pages. And I think the reason I was given that direction was because I was very quickly able to relate to the stories in the back of the book. And I think the stories in the beginning, like if you go to page 165 and forward, like those are the oldest stories, and they add the most recent stories towards the end of the book, right? So they just tack them on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what they're going to do in the 5th edition, if they're going to remove some and add some, or if they're just going to add new ones, but it's beside the point. It's to allow you to relate to these people that have shared their stories and how Alcoholics Anonymous has impacted their lives. And there's stories back there of people that didn't believe in Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe stepped away from Alcoholics Anonymous for whatever reason, but always found themselves back there for whatever reason. And when done appropriately, it was one of the most amazing experiences that they've ever had. And the first 164 pages, when Ben, you say the meat and potatoes, that's the actual program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So a lot of times you've heard us talk on here about the 12 steps. That's part of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then, and we just did the big book study, so that's something that Eric did a phenomenal job breaking down the first 164 pages, which he didn't do the last two. What's the last two? I think he didn't do To the Wives.
He didn't do 2 wives or 2 employers, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
A Vision for You, I'm sure.
He did A Vision for You.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did A Vision for You, We Agnostics, whatever the other ones are.
Yeah, I remember him saying, correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't do 2 wives because he didn't feel like if it was coming from him, it would. He does know a lot about it.
Yeah, I don't remember why. I think he said that it was more like it's too wordy, maybe. I don't know.
I forget what he said.
But regardless, he did a phenomenal job. And that's something that you can, so we're done with it, but the recordings are all there. And you can go to realrecoverytalk.com/big book study, register for it, and you'll get all the recordings. There's 23 separate recordings where Eric breaks down the first 164 pages.
You asked me like what the personal stories are about and to explain the purpose. I should have just opened the book to begin with because it actually tells you right before it starts. This is really short, but there's a page that says personal stories, how 42 alcoholics recover from their malady. Beginning with the story of Dr. Bob, a co-founder of AA. There are here presented 3 groups of personal stories, and they go in this order. Part 1 is the pioneers of AA, so all their stories are first. Part 2 is they stopped in time, which basically it describes as 17 stories may help you decide whether you're alcoholic also whether AA is for you. And so those are like the high bottom drunks. And the low bottom drunks, part 3, they lost nearly all, which is those who believe their drinking to be hopeless may again find hope in these 15 impressive tales. So essentially, like the stories go from pioneers to low bottom. They're questioning whether alcohol to the or high bottom to the low bottom drunk that like, hey man, there's no doubt your situation sucks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, for family members and loved ones, it'd be good for you to grab a copy of the book. I mean, you can get it on Amazon. They're like $10.
yeah.
And start reading some of the stories out of the back, and you'll be able, just the same as Ben and I can relate to those stories, you'll be able to relate too. From an outsider's perspective and being able to look at your loved one, you'll be able to quickly see, oh my gosh, he did this or she did that. This is what they're going through. And it will help put things into perspective for you as to what they're going through. Now, I don't suggest that you read the stories out of the back of the book and then go to your loved one and say, you know, oh, guess what I just read?
You're this guy.
You're this guy. Don't do any of that. Just, it's really for your own knowledge and stuff like that. But
whole point is, man, like with bringing up AA, it really is remarkable. It the fact that it's still around blows my mind. It's as efficient as it is, blows my mind. And it didn't come easy, so to speak. I think that people, like, I'm not going to get deep in the history. And to be honest with you, Tom, it's been years since I like went thoroughly through the history of AA. I'll be honest, I forget a lot of it. But AA definitely went through some hard times, especially in the beginning. It actually almost failed, so to speak. And that's when they came out with the traditions, stuff along those lines, which the traditions of AA are a miracle in themselves, the way that they're written, and those are, for lack of a better way to put it, guidelines, quote unquote rules, that groups should follow. But at the end of the day too, every group remain autonomous. Like, groups can run how they want to run essentially, but there is kind of like rules to it, if you will. It's unorganized, but it's also very organized, and it's really hard to explain. I've never gotten deep into the service part of it, like being a GSR or any of that stuff, getting in super involved with intergroup. I have friends that have done it, and it's one hell of a commitment. Our good buddy John Sperry is just now getting involved with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's he's an intergroup rep now.
Oh, nice.
For one of his meetings. I mean, dude, there's actually a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot of commitments. Yeah, there's secretaries, there's people that are in charge of the money.
Treasury.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, and I wanted to address real quick before we move on, the you had said something in the beginning, the haters of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Look, in the end, of course, it's Alcoholics Anonymous is made up of human beings, and that comes with different personality types and stuff. But in the end, if you look at the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous and what the program is really about, it's about being a good person.
Yeah.
And growing spiritually, being a good human being, helping people, understanding that we're not God, and being humble and all that stuff. Hence why you said, I believe it should be taught in college, you know?
What's cool, Tom, too? I have a sponsee who has probably 34 years of sobriety. The reason I'm his sponsee with less time is he wanted to go back through the steps.
Yeah.
He knew I know the first 164 pages really well. But what experience he brought to me, which is super cool, why it's such a two-way street, he had a sponsor that took him through the traditions and how to apply the traditions to your life, not just to AA. For instance, like you just brought up the haters, and one of the traditions, I'll paraphrase, is, AA doesn't get involved in outside controversy, so to speak. So AA doesn't care that there's haters. Like, it's one of their traditions. They're just not going to get involved. If somebody's hating, they don't care. They don't respond to it, AA as a whole, I guess you should say, kind of, or I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. But, You follow what I'm saying? Like, you can literally apply the traditions to your life.
Yeah.
To live a principled life. It's not just the 12 steps.
Well, it's one of those things. If you're going to be a hater, that's totally fine, but at least give it a shot, and do it appropriately. And I think that you'll come out of the other side realizing that there's really not much to hate. You can dislike some of the people and the things that you hear, but the overall message of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't think is one worth hating. What are you looking for?
I was just seeing if anything else caught my eye in here to touch on.
Oh,
Since we were more or less talking about the 90th anniversary of AA.
Well, I do think, Ben, we should talk about Men's Mental Health Month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because when you brought this topic up, Tom, I was thinking to myself, is this new? I actually hashtag GPT. Is this a new movement? And it was like, well, no. But then it gave me this like breakdown timeline that like, we were born in 84 and it started to like really come up in the 2000s, like being discussed. 2010 became more of a thing. But by COVID, men's mental health is like, and maybe because of social media, that's just really pushed.
That's how I knew about it, because I all of a sudden start seeing all these posts of Men's Mental Health Month, and I'm like, what is that? Which I think is very telling.
Yeah.
That, we have to like that was the overall. I'm like, what is Men's Mental Health Month? And then come to find out, we have a whole month talking about our mental health.
Let me bridge this real quick from our previous discussion, because one of the other statements I made to Tom, I was like, dude, AA's been doing this the whole time. Now it's just more for the normies know about it now. And let me explain. So I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous to surround myself with good men. I had to have good men in my life that I could talk to. And essentially that came through having a sponsor, in particular doing a 5th step with the sponsor. And that, that 5th step is where you are telling that individual everything. God, yourself, another human being. That other human being is where the courage is. But AA, we've been doing it the whole time. Now, what I'm starting to realize, and I've kind of picked up on in my personal life, I have people who aren't in recovery who have come to me, and they haven't come out and like said it point blank, but they're like, man, I really need a brother like you. I need to be around someone like you because of your awareness on, how you're living your life through principles, stuff along those lines. And these are people that aren't necessarily in sobriety. They're just normies.
Yeah.
They're not alcoholics or drug addicts, or they don't really, probably anybody I'm associating with isn't probably like getting smashed unless I'm getting them help. You know what I mean? But it really is becoming a thing where I think men are starting to realize, for whatever reason, men need good men in their life. And I'll reference Instagram in particular, dude. I have lately, probably in the last year or two, really been following some men who like are speaking on mental health. And these are like badass men. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you know who it kind of started with me for? What am I saying?
I don't know.
Started for me? Or I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Warrior Poet Society, John Lovell.
Yeah.
I brought him up. He's a ex-Army Ranger. Basically he teaches tactical schools. So I was like, I'm into firearms and whatnot. But I started recognizing like on his channel, he what got me to him was firearms. But what kept me with him was how he talked about marriage, how to raise kids, how to be an honorable man. And basically one of those guys that says the world needs dangerous men, men that are able to, at the same time as holding and comforting their wife, able to slay a dragon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And there's just so much more to being a man than walking around with like a caveman with not a baseball bat. What did a caveman have back then?
Club.
Club, there it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's men's mental health is very important. It's something that I agree with you. That's something, we have been given the opportunity to kind of work on our mental health through Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's certain things in AA, obviously, it doesn't take the place of a therapist. We're not saying that.
I agree.
But I think in general, just men being okay with understanding that sometimes we're fucked up. And I think society tells men in general that we have to always be okay. We have to always protect. We have to always provide. We have to always be able to do these things at the expense of anything, and I think that's where a lot of times men get hemmed up because, being able to protect and provide and do all this stuff sometimes can take precedent over, well, yeah, I am doing those things, but at the expense of my mental health. I'm working entirely too much at a job that I completely hate. I like none of my fellow colleagues. I'm depressed. I hate going to work every single day. It turns into me binge eating or drinking or whatever, but it's all in the name of being able to protect and provide. When in actuality, being able to come out and talk about that and with your spouse or whomever and really say like, hey, I want to continue to be able to do these things, but we have to really figure out something different here, and so I agree with what you're saying. Like, it is our jobs per se as men to be leaders. And this isn't an anti-woman thing, which some people out there will say, oh, women, it's not their job to protect and provide. Yes, it is. But if we're looking at, well, biblically speaking, we're supposed to be the spiritual leaders. We're supposed to, that is part of our innate duty, but we also have to protect and provide for ourselves. And, we've been able to do that. I think a lot because we've been active members of Alcoholics Anonymous and we've surrounded ourselves with good people, good men, that have been able to speak into that. And I think one of the biggest components of Men's Mental Health Month that can probably be overlooked is the spirituality aspect of it. Men really honing in on some form of spirituality and relationship with a higher power and stuff like that is going to trump just about anything.
Or I kind of relate that to a higher purpose as well.
Yeah.
Going to being a protector, being a good husband, being a good father, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which can play a large part. And I want to say this too. It doesn't all have to be cookie cutter either. Like Tom and I, we're very different. We're very, very much the same and very different in the respect, like during the Family Reconnect program, Tom actually made a comment about me at some point that I have a bleeding heart or something. What'd you say?
Yeah, exactly that.
Exactly that. Yeah. Tom, on the other hand, like
I have a stone heart.
Yeah. But hear me out. Even though Tom is kind of known around like the office as like the guy that just doesn't get emotional, I will say this because I know Tom so well. When Tom is struggling with something that's significant to him, he does bring it up. He does talk about it.
Right.
On an emotional level, even.
Yeah.
Tom's not like that every day. Tom doesn't very often. I won't say never. He doesn't get like that all the time with the clients, but Tom fits his role.
Right.
Like, there's nothing negative about what I'm saying about you right now. But like, not everybody has to be like me where you just get open and vulnerable about everything and everyone. You know what I'm saying? Tom's more reserved in that. But so like if, for instance, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but like maybe your husband's not like me, he's more like Tom. I'm not saying he needs to be more like me. Just as long as he has an outlet, and this is, and this is where this journey happens, like in sobriety, knows like, hey, I can go talk to other good men and be inspired by other good men and have men to lean on. And I to call it what it is, like I absolutely need women, 100%. I need good women in my life. But in respect to being a man, it is also at the same time so valuable for me to have good men in my life.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's one of those things that men have to be provided the right space to be able to share that stuff.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's I think very important. So, if you're looking in terms of, I mean, I'll talk about my own marriage. There's been instances where Amanda has come to me and has said, why didn't you feel comfortable sharing that with me before? And my response was, I didn't feel like you were providing me a platform to feel comfortable in sharing it. You know what I mean? There's been instances where I've held back on sharing things because, and I think this is, common in marriage, I don't want it to get spun around on me. You know what I mean? Like, I have gone to my wife with things that irritate me or that's making me feel a certain sort of way, but then all of a sudden it's my fault. You know what I'm saying? Now, she does not do that intentionally all the time. I'm not saying that, but there's a balance there, So, like, speaking to wives and spouses from a husband's perspective, are you giving your husband an opportunity to share how they're feeling and shutting up and not saying anything, and not having a response, because but the same goes for me. Like, my wife will share something with me, and it's very known in my household, I get on the defense very quickly, right? If Amanda shares something with me and I feel like I will take it personal at the snap of a finger and then start jumping on the defense. And then she'll say, I just wanted you to listen. That was it. And then I'm like, son of a bitch, I did it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, going to the therapeutic aspect of it, this is why Amanda and myself, we've been in marriage counseling for the better part of 6 years. Not because we're on the verge of divorce, but because it's more response or precautionary.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, you gotta keep in mind too, it's interesting we're talking about this stuff. I think it's taking us in a little different direction than what I intended, but it's all good stuff. You have to keep in mind too, I feel like we're kind of talking about relationships right now.
Yeah.
Relationships evolve over time. Like when you first meet somebody, your husband, your wife, whatever the case may be, in the beginning, it's about dating. It's about you two having fun together, making a connection. You got plenty of time. All of a sudden you have kids. Now you have responsibilities. You're having to learn to navigate as the environment changes for you together. Yeah. And just because you did really well having fun together dating doesn't mean you're going to do really well together with the responsibilities of kids. Yeah, that all of a sudden, like, throw in, my wife is overtired from changing diapers while I'm at work all day. Like, I need to be able to, as husband, come home and understand that.
Right.
Like, I can't just be like, well, I've been at work all day. What have you been doing?
Especially when you got jobs like ours, where we get to sit here and record.
Yeah, that's what I get that all the time, dude. You don't do anything at the office.
Yeah, what do you do at work? And it's like, part of it's valid, because we love what we do.
We do love what we do, so yeah.
It's not like we're out there. It's funny, I was driving down Okeechobee, and every time I drive through a construction zone, I always think to myself, man, I'm a real bitch.
Me too.
These guys are out here in 95-degree weather doing hardcore road construction, and I'm listening to a podcast how to ante up my YouTube channel or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, anyways. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, relationships evolve.
Yeah, and it's we are talking about men's mental health, but like the whole thing's a two-way street. I see it that way.
Well, the thing is, in keeping it in men's mental health and also relationships, this is why, and again, just speaking from my own experience, I am the type of person that if I don't feel like I'm in a like a safe relationship, I won't say shit. I won't talk about anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that goes back to and I know I could share anything with my wife. Like, her intentions are 100% pure. I know she loves me more than anything on this planet. But if I don't feel that, it's going to prevent me from wanting to open up with her. And we're all relationship driven for the most part. Most humans are, outside of my dad. My dad can care less about having relationships with people. But, we're societal creatures, and with that comes relationships, and healthy relationships, and being able to communicate and talk openly about this stuff. And society has kind of molded men into, you just got to go to work and provide and protect your family at any expense. And I think it's true, but we also got to, continue to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I forget what the exact thing was, but men also. I'm kind of looking at my phone, seeing if I can find it again. The numbers aren't important, but we're more likely to commit suicide.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to have these conversations, man. It's like, what's funny, Tom, is I have recently, in the last year, I'd say year, it's been a thing where I've had more men call me saying that they're suicidal.
Really?
Than ever before. And I think, hear me out, I think this is a good thing. In the sense that I think it's more because society, these men are catching on that it is okay to call someone and tell them. Where before, I've noticed an uptick for me where people are telling me this, where prior years, I have a feeling people were just hiding it. I don't think that it's more prevalent, and now that's why people are calling me. I think men are just more comfortable with, I can pick up the phone and call someone and tell them this.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely become more okay.
Yeah.
To talk about that stuff.
Yeah. At some point today, I don't remember when, we were talking about, at the beginning of this episode, how we may be helping or impacting people in ways we don't even know. It wasn't long ago, a couple weeks ago, to be transparent, somebody randomly called me who I haven't seen at a meeting in probably over a year at least, maybe 2. It's probably been a year. Randomly called me. Like, we know each other from the meetings. Our relationship isn't anything like really beyond the meetings, but he called me specifically. He was like, God just told me to call you. I have no idea what you ever say at meetings. I can't remember any of it. I couldn't quote you on any of it. But something just told me from sitting with you in those meetings that you were the person I needed to call and say, I've been thinking about killing myself.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah.
What the hell did you do?
What do you mean?
Like, what do you say? What'd you say?
Oh, what did I say to him?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, not that I didn't think that you were. What'd you?
I follow. I don't know what
you thought that, like, maybe I thought you were making him want to kill himself.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Like, how did you handle that situation?
First and foremost, telling him, like, hey man, if you ever need to pick up the phone and say that at any time, because I know that suicidal ideation doesn't just go away. And chances are that if I believe, I don't have any proof of this, and I don't think there is any way to study it, truthfully. But I think that if somebody is truly, truly thinking about committing suicide, they've probably been thinking about it for a while. Now, not necessarily continuously for a while, but maybe it popped in their head for the first time 2 years ago.
Right.
And then a year and a half ago. and then maybe a few months go by, and then it pops in their head. I don't think it's like continuous, but I do believe like there's a cyclical thing with it, so to speak, unless the underlying issue gets resolved.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, just to call it what it is, I'm always super vulnerable and authentic, and I'm willing to bet I shared in a meeting before, like suicidal ideation was a huge part of my story prior to getting sober.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it through high school in particular. Like, I can't believe I didn't kill myself.
Well, you said you've said a lot that drugs and alcohol kept you alive.
100%.
Yeah.
If I didn't have drugs and alcohol, I probably would have killed myself.
Yeah.
It was the only relief that I got. So I think maybe at some point, like someone picked up on that, and he couldn't say what it was but yeah, man, just and assuring someone like, hey, dude, call me anytime you're thinking about that. Yeah. And I also told him, I said, dude, I want to let you know this. You're not the only one that's called me and said that. So if you think you're the only one calling or the only man having those ideas, like I've had some low points in my life where one day I'm like, dude, oh man.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I'm depressed. This sucks. Is anything ever going to get better? Might as well end it. I actually have been looking a little bit more into suicide. As far as trying to get an understanding of it in a way. I don't know. Like I kind of went down like a rabbit hole with it on YouTube and stuff for a minute. And it was interesting. It was presented to me in a way from someone's YouTube channel that it's actually has to do with control.
Mm.
The idea, and I'll just use a gun, for example. The idea that, say, for instance, I feel my life is shit and everything sucks and I've lost complete control. Maybe I lost custody of the kids. My marriage is over. I lost my job. Everything's gone. I'll never get it back. As a man or woman, I've completely lost control. Being able to grab that gun out of the safe, put it up to my head and pull the trigger puts me back in control. It was talking about like the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
I still have the ability to call the shot.
Right.
No pun intended there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I believe that. I think it's a very foolish way of remaining in control, but
it makes sense though.
It does. It does. I think that.
And I want to further understand it too. We've never talked about this. We when our clients come here, we have to do a suicide risk assessment, and I don't do the assessments anymore. Like I don't give them to the client, but every client does one upon intake. And if you answer a certain number of questions, is it 10 questions or is it 20?
I think it's 10. And if you answer more than one, or if you answer one, a certain
is that what it is? A certain one. I think
then you have to have there. So there's a suicide screen, which is 10 questions. I think it's 10. And then if they answer yes to any of those 10, then they automatically have to get put in with one of our therapists and have a suicide risk assessment.
Yes. So,
which I would fail. You know what I'm saying? Like if you gave me a suicide screen, have you ever thought of killing yourself? Yes. Okay. Now I have to go do a suicide screen, which is fine. I would gladly do it, but go ahead.
Yeah. But the reason I bring it up is it is more common than you think. And we're dealing with people who are just getting here and they may only have a week or two of sobriety in some cases. If they were only in detox for a week or something, they come to us. So, they're probably at a pretty low bottom and their life ain't all together right now. So it's not an uncommon thing. And I'm glad that it is being talked about more. It's more common than people realize.
Oh, for sure.
And I mean, dude, we're having to have discussions with, I don't know how many, I've never really counted or paid close attention, but we get updated from the therapist. Hey, so-and-so we have to get them with the therapist right away for a suicide assessment.
Yep.
And
it's immediately.
It's immediate. Yeah. We don't move forward because our number one job as a treatment center before anything else is to assure somebody's safety and well-being.
Yeah.
That always comes first. Physical safety and well-being, medically, everything.
Yep. Well, Men's Mental Health Month. Take
Yeah.
care of yourself. Any plans for the weekend?
No, my boys are actually going up to Minnesota without me for 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
You're going to be a single bachelor for 3 weeks?
Yeah, I got a dog sit, though.
Oh, screw that.
I know, dude. I kind of messed up because Mo's a dog. I love Mo. Mo stayed with the ex,
Yeah.
the mother of my children, but since she's taking them to Minnesota, I agreed to watch Mo. However, Mo's getting kind of old, dude. He's probably 12 or 13 years old, and he's pretty, you can't tell really he's old because he's a smaller dog and holding it together pretty well. But he's not been able to hold it in the house, bro.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man. I last time I dog sat, I had him for a couple days for some reason. I forget what it was, like a month or two ago. Bro, I walked into my apartment, opened the door.
Oh, I remember that.
And it smelled so bad. I was like, what is that? And finally I look over, dude. I didn't know a little dog could go so much.
Yeah.
Bro, it was bad. There was diarrhea everywhere. I'm like, oh. And so this morning, I had Kai last night. I went to drop him at his mom's this morning, and I walk in the house and Mo gone on the floor right by the front door. Same kind of thing. Like I'm like, oh, what's that smell? Diarrhea on the floor, dude. So I have a feeling like I'm going into a diarrhea-filled 3 weeks.
Oh, no, dude.
I know.
I told you you should put him in like pet paradise or something for a little bit.
You said he'd probably love it.
Yeah. Well, he's with other dogs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know. Even if like a week, it's $50 a night.
Yeah.
And he gets to play with all the other dogs and do all the shit that all the other dogs do and talk dog talk. And
we did it once in the past.
it's right here. It's right on Military.
What's this one called?
It's called Pet Paradise.
Pet Paradise.
Yeah, it's right before Blue Heron Boulevard.
And they're not under investigation for nothing?
No, what do you mean?
I don't know. You just got to double check those things.
No, no, they're fine.
All right.
Yeah, I would just. Does Mo have all of his shots? Because they need to have all their shots.
I don't know if Whitney would have the paperwork or not.
Well, whatever. I that's what I would do. I would drop him off there for a week at least. You know, and he may tell you he doesn't want to come back home with you afterwards.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But poor Mo.
Poor Mo. Well, he's definitely in the last quarter of his life.
Yeah, I think so. He got hit
he
by
may
a car
be in the
not
2-minute
long ago.
warning. Who knows?
He got hit by a car not long ago.
Yeah.
How many months ago was that?
I don't know. A lot of months.
Maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Got hit by a car, but he bounced back, bro.
Yeah.
I thought he was like done for. He was limping around, barely moving, couldn't jump up on the bed or the couch, and now he's back to jumping around.
Have you ever had a dog die on you yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sucks.
Very young age.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I've had 2. I had Olive, my Boston Terrier. She died when I was a teenager. But then I recently had, I think it would have been last year or the year before. Maybe the year before, Maple, my little Shih Tzu, she died.
Oh, you were hard.
I was a freaking wreck
over Maple.
Yeah.
Remember that, dude.
Yep. And the thing that made it really tough was it was out of nowhere.
Oh.
Like I woke up in the morning and she was just not moving really well, and I picked her up and I can just tell that like, like you could just feel the life leaving her body, and I took her to the emergency clinic and one thing led to another. They were like, oh, she probably has cancer or something going on. Yes, we could, further diagnose and do all this stuff. It's going to be like $7,000. And I'm just like, she was 9 at the time.
Yeah.
And I had even told Amanda when I put her in the car to take her to the vet, I'm like, look, she's probably not coming home. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to involve the kids in this. Like, because it was right when Hattie was graduating VPK. Because I missed Hattie's VPK graduation because I had Maplewood. And so anyways, I had to have her put down. Yeah, that sucked.
I'm just not in a place to have a dog or a pet right now.
No.
I mean, to call it what it is, we were saying we love our jobs, but I do work a lot of hours.
Sure.
You know, man, I can't leave the house at 8 in the morning and come home at 5 or 6 and have a dog in an apartment locked up all day. It just ain't right.
Yeah, I got 2 dogs now, and I wished I would have never done that, but
they're a lot of work.
It is, dude. It is. And it's, Amanda, she stays at home, so it's not terrible for them, but I just don't like the responsibility of it.
Yeah. So at the house, where the X is, you can just open the back door. It's all fenced in, let Mo run out.
Yeah.
Me, I gotta I'm in an apartment.
Dude, yeah.
Now it's a whole thing where I gotta put him on a leash, walk him down the stairs, take him for a walk. There's a dog park down the way, but Mo's the type of dog that you can't just let go. Mo thinks it's a game,
and he'll get attacked by another dog. Maybe
he won't come back. He won't, if you take him off a leash outside, he'll come up to you to where you think you almost got him, and he'll turn off and sprint. And I'll stare at you from 15 yards away, and then come back where you can always get, and then sprint away again. I'm like, oh. When he was younger, it would take an hour and a half to get him back in the house if he snuck out the front door. Now he's getting old. And
you could probably
take as long. He wears out.
He'd probably outrun you.
Oh, Mo's fast, bro.
Really? Still?
Yeah, he's a fast little dog.
So Maple, and this is my last story, and then we'll wrap up. When we first got her, Amanda and I got her right when we got married. And we lived in City Palms, which is this high-rise condo in downtown West Palm. Well, we got Maple as a puppy, and instead of taking her out down 12 flights on the elevator, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff, we potty trained her on pee pads, these little, freaking pee pad things. Well, the next 10 years that she was alive, she associated anything on the floor as a pee pad.
No.
Clothes, towels. So imagine, we had Maple, and then we start having kids almost immediately, and they start leaving stuff on the floor. I mean, there was a point in time where we could have no area rugs like this, nothing on our floors because she would just piss all over them. So part of me was when she did die, I was like, well, at least we can get some rugs, so.
Oh.
Anyways, all right. That was fun. Anything else?
No.
Family Reconnect. Make sure you go check it out. realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. Get all the details. And if you have any questions about it, just email us. So, all right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.